Welcome to this edition of News Today, a series where we briefly discuss and analyze the important news of the day. Without delay, let's explore the headlines first. New solar power scheme has been introduced for particularly vulnerable tribal groups, habitations, and villages. As per the Ministry of Commerce and Industry, processed food exports have gone up by 150%, boost farmers' income in 9 years. Delhi High Court permits PepsiCo to claim patent for potato variety grown for its potato chips. Global Trade Research Initiative released a report titled India's FTA Negotiations with European Free Trade Association countries. Central Marine Fisheries Research Institute has proposed policy suggestions for sustainable marine fisheries management. NASA's Solar Dynamics Observatory has captured the strongest solar flare since 2017. Starting with the first news. New solar power scheme has been introduced for particularly vulnerable tribal groups, habitations or villages. The President has sanctioned implementation of the scheme under the Pradhan Mantri Janjati Adivasi Nyay Mahabhiyan. Before moving ahead, let's first understand about the particularly vulnerable tribal groups or PVTGs. They are centrally recognized special categories from among the scheduled tribes. They were first recognized in 1975 as primitive tribal groups or PTGs on recommendations of the UN Timor Commission. In 2006, primitive tribal groups were renamed as particularly vulnerable tribal groups. The criteria for identifying PVTGs are pre-agricultural level of technology, low level of literacy, economic backwardness, and declining or stagnant population. Currently, there are 75 PVTGs. Now let's dive into the key features of this scheme. It includes two components. First is the electrification of 1 lakh PVTG households through off-grid solar power, which includes solar home lighting system for scattered unelectrified households in PVTG areas and solar mini-grids for clusters of households in PVTG habitation or hamlet. The second is the solarization of multi-purpose centers by installation of off-grid solar power packs with battery bank. The respective DISCOMs or distributing companies in PVTG area would be the implementing agency, and the scheme's timeline would be 2023-24 to 2025-26. It will be monitored by the Ministry of New and Renewable Energy and the Ministry of Tribal Affairs. For the readdressal of grievances, vendors shall operationalize helpline numbers in local language or on language of the PVTG area. At last, now let's have a look at the Pradhan Mantri Janjati Adivasi Nyay Mahabhiyan. It aims to saturate PVTG households and habitations with basic facilities such as safe housing, clean drinking water and sanitation, and improved access to education. It comprises 11 critical interventions through 9 ministries, including the Ministry of Tribal Affairs, over 3 years. It has been implemented as a combination of centrally sponsored schemes in partnership with state governments or UT administrations and central sector schemes through line ministries or departments. Moving on to the next news. As per the Ministry of Commerce and Industry, processed food exports have gone up by 150% in 9 years. India's food processing sector emerged as a sunrise sector and attracted FDI investments of about 50,000 crore rupees in the past 9 years. Processed food segment's contribution to agri-exports has grown to 23%. India has 158 food and agri-geographical indications and 708 unique food items across districts under One District, One Product initiative. Also, India's food processing market is estimated to reach $535 billion by 2025. As we discussed about some facts about the food processing sector, now let's have a look at the significance of this sector. It helps in boosting farmers' income by value addition and reducing waste. Also, it contributes towards generating employment. It helps earn foreign exchange and ensure food and nutritional security. Further now, let's discuss some challenges related to food processing sector. Inadequate cold storage, processing facilities, and transportation network highlights the infrastructural setbacks. Also, lack of trained manpower and technology further hinders the smooth process. Around 74 million tons of food is lost in India every year, leading to high food wastage. There are also some initiatives taken to promote the food processing sector. Let's have a look at them as well. First is the Pradhan Mantri Kisan Sampada Yojana. Mega Food Park is one of its components. Second is the One District, One Product initiative gives a new identity to small farmers and small industries. And third is the Production-Linked Incentive Scheme for the food processing industry. Delhi High Court permits PepsiCo to claim patent for potato variety grown for its potato chips. The judgment came on PepsiCo's appeal under the Protection of Plant Varieties and Farmers' Rights or PPVFR Act 2001 against order of PPVFR Authority. Now let's talk about the Protection of Plant Varieties and Farmers' Rights Authority. It is a statutory body under PPVFR Act established in 2005. It comes under the Ministry of Agriculture and Farmers' Welfare. Its functions include registration of new plant varieties, rewarding farmers engaged in conservation and preservation of plant genetic resources, maintenance of National Register of Plant Varieties and National Gene Bank. PPVFR Authority had revoked PepsiCo's registration with respect to plant variety FL 2027. FL 2027 is a chipping potato variety with low external defects, which is grown exclusively for PepsiCo by some farmers. It has high dry matter or high solids content and stable sugars, making it highly suitable for manufacture of chips. Under WTO's Agreement on Trade-Related Aspects of Intellectual Property Rights, it is obligatory for a member to provide protection to new plant varieties. Under this, India enacted Protection of Plant Varieties and Farmers' Rights Act. To become eligible for registration under this act, a plant variety needs to confirm criteria of distinctiveness, uniformity, and stability. Now let's have a look at the rights which the PPVFR Act recognizes. First is the farmer's right for registration and protection of new variety, farmer's variety and extant variety, rewards for conservation of plant genetic resources, and etc. Second is the researcher's rights to use any registered variety for experiments. And the last is the breeder's right, which gives them exclusive rights to produce, sell, import, or export. Moving on to the next news. Global Trade Research Initiative released a report titled India's FTA Negotiations with European Free Trade Association countries. India encounters challenges in negotiating the Free Trade Agreement or FTA with Switzerland and other European Free Trade Association nations during final rounds of talks. Before moving ahead, let's first understand about the European Free Trade Association or EFTA. It is an intergovernmental organization for promotion of free trade and economic integration between its members. It has 4 members: Iceland, Liechtenstein, Norway, and Switzerland. These countries are not part of the European Union. It was founded by Stockholm Convention in 1960 by its then 7 members. The challenges encountered during the final moments of the talks include Switzerland's decision to eliminate import duties on all industrial goods for all countries starting from January 1, 2024, limits FTA utility for India. EFTA requested for tariff-free entry on major imports like gold, pharmaceuticals, watches, cotton, chocolates, and soybean oil. Large trade deficit in favor of EFTA countries restricts gains for India. For instance, in financial year 2023, India's trade deficit with Switzerland stood at $14.45 billion. Complexities surrounding inclusion of gold in FTA and its compliance with rules of origin conditions is leading to gold trade complications. Gold accounts for 80% of India's imports from Switzerland. India also faced challenges in agricultural exports to Switzerland due to a complex web of tariffs, quality standards, and approval requirements. Also, EFTA has shown no inclination to make agriculture tariffs zero on most basic agricultural produce. Moreover, trade-related intellectual property rights plus protection requested by EFTA countries may come in conflict with India's domestic regulations of intellectual property rights, especially patents and copyrights. Moving ahead, Central Marine Fisheries Research Institute has proposed policy suggestions for sustainable marine fisheries management. Before starting, first let's talk about the Central Marine Fisheries Research Institute. It was established in 1947 and is part of the Indian Council of Agricultural Research family. ICAR is an autonomous organization under Ministry of Agriculture and Farmers' Welfare. It coordinates, guides, and manages research and education in agriculture. Coming back to the news, let's discuss about fisheries in India. India is the 3rd largest fish producing country and ranks 2nd in aquaculture production. Fisheries are state subject under the 7th schedule of Constitution, while fishing and fisheries beyond territorial waters, which is the exclusive economic zone beyond 12 nautical miles, are on the Union list. However, presently there is no comprehensive legislation to manage marine fisheries in exclusive economic zone. Government has proposed the Indian Marine Fisheries Bill for sustainable development of marine fisheries in the exclusive economic zone. Now let's have a look at the key policy suggestions for the sustainable marine fisheries management, which include the introduction of central legislation or Marine Fishery Act for regulation of fishing in areas beyond territorial waters to address policy and legislative vacuum. Further, institutionalizing regular stock assessments of marine fishery resources and mechanism for overseeing deep sea fishing, establishment of national guidelines on eco-labeling of marine fishery resources, and at last, implementation of frontier technologies like artificial intelligence for tracking fishing vessels through vessel monitoring systems. There are also some initiatives taken to harness fisheries potential, which include Pradhan Mantri Matsya Sampada Yojana 2020, National Policy on Marine Fisheries Policy 2017 for promoting Blue Revolution through sustainable utilization of marine fishery resources, Fisheries and Aquaculture Infrastructure Development Fund 2015 for infrastructure creation. In our next news, NASA's Solar Dynamics Observatory has captured the strongest solar flare since 2017. Let's start by first understanding about Solar Dynamics Observatory. It was launched in 2010 and was the first mission launched for NASA's Living with a Star program, or LWS. LWS was designed to understand causes of solar variability and its impact on Earth. It studies how solar activity is created and how space weather comes from that activity. The flare, classified as an X 5.0, emitted a powerful burst of high-energy radiation that caused a radio blackout over the Americas. Solar flares are sudden and intense explosions of energy on the surface of Sun, often associated with sunspots. Solar flares are caused by the release of magnetic energy stored in Sun's atmosphere. Sunspots form when concentration of magnetic field from deep within Sun well up to the surface. Solar flares are classified into three categories based on their peak X-ray flux. That is, C, which is weakest, M for medium, and X for strongest. They are further classified from 1 to 9 with higher numbers indicating more powerful flare. Now let's understand the effects of solar flares on Earth. Solar flares can interfere with signals of radio communications, navigation systems, and satellites. Moreover, radiation storm can pose a risk to astronauts, spacecraft and aircraft, and people exposed to high altitudes or polar regions. Solar flares followed by coronal mass ejection and cause geomagnetic storms, that is, temporary disturbance of Earth's magnetic field. These affect power grids, pipelines, and railways and cause auroras. Coronal mass ejection are huge bubbles of radiation and particles from Sun. The place in news for today is Timor Leste with its capital Dili. It is in news as Indian Prime Minister held a bilateral meeting with the President of Timor Leste. Talking about its political features, it is an island country of Southeast Asia, bounded by the Timor Sea in the southeast, Wetter Strait in the north, Ombai Strait in northwest, and Western Timor, which is part of the Indonesian province of East Nusa Tenggara in southwest. If we talk about its geographical features, then it has a dry tropical climate and moderate rainfall, and its highest point is Mount Tatamilo. As we conclude today's main news, let's take a look at some quick updates. World Bank Group released its flagship report, Global Economic Perspectives. As per its key findings, global trade growth in 2024 is expected to be only half the average in the decade before pandemic. Global growth is projected to slow for the third year in a row from 2.6% in 2023 to 2.4% in 2024. Exercise Sea Dragon, a multinational maritime exercise to enhance interoperability between Indian Navy and participating navies from the US, Australia, South Korea, and Japan. Two payloads developed by Bangalore-based space startup Bellatrix Aerospace were launched on PSLV Orbital Experimental Module 3 or POEM-3. POEM is ISRO's platform that helps perform in-orbit experiments using the final stage of PSLV. Rudra is green propulsion system replacing hazardous hydrazine with a non-toxic environmentally friendly propellant, and Arka electric engine utilizes electricity instead of conventional chemical propellants. A recent study examined role of major classes of mycorrhizal fungi, arbuscular mycorrhizal and ictomycorrhizal in latitudinal diversity gradient or LDG. LDG refers to the pattern of having lots of species at the equator with diversity reducing towards poles. As per the study, mycorrhizal fungi form mutually beneficial relationships with majority of plant roots globally. Department of Telecommunications has extended M2M and VPAN and VLAN registration to all entities engaged in businesses. If we talk about VPAN, it is a personal network that uses wireless communication technologies to communicate and transfer data between users' connected devices. It can be created using Wi-Fi, Bluetooth, etc. WLAN is a wireless distribution method for two or more devices. It uses high-frequency radio waves and often includes an access point to the internet. NASA launched Peregrine lunar lander to explore Moon's Bay of Stickness. Mission is part of NASA's Commercial Lunar Payload Service initiative, which partners with commercial entities to deliver payloads to the Moon. Scientific goals of the mission include to analyze the lunar exosphere, assess thermal properties and hydrogen content of lunar regolith, and study magnetic fields. Chandubi festival commenced from January 1 to 5 on the banks of Chandubi Beel in Kamrup district of Assam. It is mainly celebrated by Rabha and Hajong communities from Rabha Hasong Autonomous Council (RHAC). It is an annual festival that displays Assamese culture and traditions. Reportedly, Chandubi Lake came into being in 1897 as a result of devastating quake. The President of India conferred National Sports Awards 2023, administered by Ministry of Youth Affairs and Sports. It includes following 6 core awards: Major Dhyanchand Khel Ratna Award, which is the highest sporting honor; Arjuna Award for consistent performance over 4 years; Dronacharya Award for highest sports honor for coaches; Major Dhyanchand Award for lifetime achievement; Maulana Abul Kalam Azad Trophy for top performance in inter-university tournaments; Rashtriya Khel Protsahan Puraskar for sports promotion by organizations or corporates. Before we go, it's time to put your knowledge to test in today's segment of Test Your Learning. Thank you for joining us. We hope you have enjoyed this edition of News Today. To get the answers to today's quiz and to download the PDF of News Today, make sure to check out the links in the description below.